7, 8, 9, 10. Hello. Ride 'em, cowboy.
Okay, hey everybody. Hey YouTube land, welcome to Pep Talks. I'm Eddie Pepitone, not to drop names. And I'm here with my co-host Steve Lally.
Yeah. Hello everybody. God bless you. Welcome back. Thank you for calling and emailing us.
And we are here today with Laurie Buckley. Among other things, she is the daughter of the great Lord Buckley. Now, I know a lot of you young people have no fucking clue who Lord Buckley is. Lord Buckley is one of the innovators of comedy, of stand-up comedy. He was called that great hipster. He influenced Lenny Bruce. He influenced Tom Waits.
Robin Williams.
I'll tell you a story.
Bob Dylan says he took To Dance Beneath the Diamond Sky. I think it was a line from a Lord Buckley piece. And who else, Laurie? And welcome, Laurie. Welcome to Pep Talks.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. They call me Story Buckley, so you know I'm full of it. That's right. I've been around. I've interviewed lots and lots of people that I put into book form and things like that. And when I met our favorite Mr. Comedian, he was so cute. He was watching Quentin Quisp at the theater because I was coming in from Vegas, and I said, "Mom, you promised me. I know you're tired. They work you to death, but you said I could go to a theater if I came in. I am here."
How old were you?
Oh, it was probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So, I'm right around late 40s or something like that. And so I said, and there is Robin Williams.
Uh-huh.
And he is talking to my mother. She doesn't really know who he is because he hasn't said who he is yet. So I slowly walk over gently so I don't friggin' freak them both out. And I gently touch his elbow. And I touch my mother's elbow. And I said, "Allow me to properly introduce you." I said, "Robin, this is Lady Buckley, Lord Buckley's wife."
He didn't know?
He didn't know. They started talking. She was telling, "Oh, you're so wonderful. You're such a lovely talent." Lick, But she meant it, but he didn't.
Where were you?
We were in a beautiful theater in Beverly Hills somewhere, where Quentin Quisp, the great English...
Quentin Quisp.
From England, yeah. The BSer of all time.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
I forget what he... Do you know Quentin Quisp?
I don't know him.
He could pull a steamship. I like a little... Go ahead, let's hear something. And I enjoyed him, and this was just intermission.
Was he a monologist like your dad,
yeah.
Lord Buckley?
Yeah.
He was Quentin Quisp.
Yes.
By the way, a lot of these names you're not going to know. You know Robin Williams, but you probably don't know Quentin Quisp. And that's on you. That's on you. You're not good people. You're not historical people. Your idea of history is 20 minutes ago on your Twitter feed. Okay,
I don't know him either, people, so don't feel bad.
He's part of this problem.
I'm part of the problem.
Well, here's what Robin said to me.
Yeah.
Lord Buckley's wife. He goes, "I can't believe it." He said, "I used to sit up in my room and play record after record, Lord Buckley, all the time until my dad, shut that goddamn record player up. I'm sick of hearing it." And he just kept saying it and saying it. He said until he began to absorb the rhythmic beat, which Dad had the jazz. I was born in jazz, so I know.
You were born in jazz. Now, also Lord Buckley influenced Dizzy Gillespie.
Absolutely.
Which I read today. And one of the big, I had heard the Naz. That's one of Lord Buckley's big albums, and that's what he called Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the Naz.
That's right, cut it short.
And that was his. Can you imitate your dad a little bit for us? Like, can you do any of the hipsterism stuff?
Hipsters, flipsters, and I can't do this hand. Finger popping daddies, knock me your lobes. I come here to bury Caesar, not to hip you to him.
Yes.
Because the bad jazz that a cat blows lives long after he's cut out.
Right, that was the...
Wow, Laurie, that was awesome.
That was not a problem.
That was excellent.
But it was a wonderful thing. Robin was really, really shaken. And
well, Lord Buckley, man, he's your dad, so to you... you know him very well, but everybody else is like, holy shit, this is an icon.
Well, I can tell you that we lived together as families, and as the hip movement began to take hold, the beats where people
Right,
were picking up on.
he was pre-beat. He was an influence on the beats as well, right?
Well, see, he was talking in the language of the American Beauty Negro, who had to laugh at so many things that were not funny until it deepened the wells of the humor.
Yeah.
And he wasn't kidding. Charlie Parker stood over my crib when I was a baby.
Is that right?
That's right. I'm a nostrilist. Yeah. Try to pull yourself together. I played with my friend. He was taping me on a song, and he played his trumpet, and then he gives me a look, and all of a sudden I'm.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Charlie Parker looked over your crib. The only people
Yes.
who looked over my crib were people who worked in like
Teamsters!
Yeah, Teamster, boiler room, people who worked, and not boiler rooms where they sell stuff, but just boiler rooms where they have furnaces in it, and they just had soot on their faces, and they would look and go, "So that's your kid, huh, Bob?" That's my dad. And my mom was checked out. She took the check. So being around all these incredible artists.
Charlie Parker said to me, he said, when I was 16, I'd have 16 gold Cadillacs. Okay, how about 76? Is that working for you?
How about what?
76. I'm 70 now, but thank goodness I don't look like it. But I've had nothing but fun. But the people that came, and Dad was going to call me Surprise. And that would have meant Serpy for short.
That wouldn't have been good.
And so then Ed Sullivan stepped in, because Dad had done 9 Sullivan shows, and he said, "Okay, you cannot name your daughter Surprise. I go, Serpy for short would have been the disaster."
I want to do Ed Sullivan saying that to your daughter. "Listen, Lauren,
he named me after.
You cannot name your daughter Serpy. Surprise."
Serpy, yeah, what a gal, huh? So he was so sweet, and so he named me after my grandmother's, Laurie Selma Buckley.
Good choice.
That's right.
Good choice.
Saved my life, okay? So enough, they go, so Laurie B is caffeine free. That was the 5th grade. Can't you find anything good? Mm-hmm. And so he, and we toured together. Dad was working in New York and being booked all over because, of course, the beauty of the American Beauty Negro was the jazz talk. The beauty of the jazz talk.
What did he play? Like hip clubs, I'd imagine. He was like the original like underground comic, I think, or one of them.
Well, he was, he went like in San Francisco. He was in all the clubs in there, and he was
Hungry Eye.
The Hungry Eye. Dad was there, absolutely. And Vegas, he was in the big legit places like the Sands, because
Is that right?
Carl Cohen and Dad met when the El Rancho was open. And the beautiful candy bar, the stripper, we didn't have to worry. She brought in a lot of people. And
Candy Bar, Candy Bar, a very famous stripper.
Yeah, very
in
famous.
Vegas.
Absolutely, the El Rancho was. This was Vegas.
What 40s?
Well, let's see. We came there in 1954. Dad came in for a gig. I believe it was downtown, and so we stayed at the the Moulin Rouge, or it was just a stinky little, not stinky, but
in Vegas?
It was a tiny little motel, and we stayed in there until Dad's gig was up, and then we went back to L.A. And but Dad, while he was working at the El Rancho, he went out and bought half an acre.
In Vegas?
It was only 60 feet wide. There was nothing.
In Vegas?
Yeah, there was nothing around us. It had a well, and there was literally about, I'd say, 800 or 900 mattresses on the property that the Army dumped over there. And there was another on the other side of them was unfinished houses, but we had a pump house, and we had a 2-bedroom home, and dirt roads, Eldora Avenue, 5925.
You lived there for a while?
Oh, yeah, I lived there, sure.
In Vegas?
Absolutely.
I always think living in Vegas is like living on the moon because of the landscape. It's just flat and empty. What do you think? Was it like that?
I friggin' loved it, man, because of one main, Dad goes, "I'm going to get you horses." That was the bait.
I think this
Daddy,
was
thank you.
two different eras also that we're talking.
Well, I was ready to go, and that was so we drove all the way in there and pulled in, and where's my corral? But as the universe provides, because I believe they're a lot better than credit cards, is that I was going to, within about less than a year, a stable moved in about a quarter of a mile from where we lived, and I got to ride horses for the next 4 or 5 years, which to me was a thrill.
Do you still ride?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'm a good rider. I'll ride your ass if you give me any trouble. No, it's around my house we giggle a lot. And so what was wonderful is that there was nothing out there but us and the Lindells. In Las Vegas, there's Lindell Street. Eldora was Mrs. Lindell. And so we became friends with them, and we all went to school together as kids. And then the Reynolds moved in from England. And my best friends.
Is that Debbie Reynolds?
No, but Debbie, we knew Debbie, the Debbie Hotel, which she let her son handle all of the money and just went through it like the speed of light.
Did he?
And she was married to a really nice builder, so he took care of him too, spend. And he put in a dynamic showroom, but it almost took every single bit of the money. And so I'd see her walking. She'd be walking through the place, and everybody loved her.
Debbie Reynolds?
Yeah, she was cool.
This is going to be a super duper walk-through showbiz history. So don't give anybody any shit, okay? This is an incredible... Do you hear this? Okay, we've already... Did you also see Sinatra a lot growing up?
Sinatra and Dad were best friends.
Were they really?
Oh, absolutely. Dad.
Hey, Lord! Hey, I want to do a Sinatra. Hey, Lord Buckley. This is Frankie. Come on over to the Sands, baby.
Well, you see, the way that they worked out of Vegas, and so Dad had gone onto one of his shows, and because Dad just loved it, and so he was like, he was in another part of the country, and he says, look, I'm going to buy you your plane ticket. I don't want you in the front row. Just take off. So he goes out there, and he looks down, and there's Dad in the front row. Well, then him and Dad were booked in Hawaii, and Dad confessed he made a line of people take their clothes off and walk nude through the Hawaiian hotel. Okay, that was Lord Buckley having a happy time. And of course they were all, freaked out and stuff like that. But he loved Dad. He loved him. And Joey Bishop, same way. But, Joey Bishop loved Lord Buckley because Dad was funnier. And then Carl Cohen went back to the Sands, and he would book Dad, and Carl and him were wonderful friends. He was such a gracious man. And when Ed came into town, boom, right into I love the Shirley Temples. And
Shirley Temples.
Yeah, and
I used to like Shirley Temples,
I did too, actually, before.
Yeah.
Well, who didn't? And Shirley Temple, of course, the non-alcoholic drink for children.
Pretend, but we could act drunk if we needed to.
Absolutely.
You could be drunk on diabetes from a Shirley Temple.
It's a cold shot, yeah.
I've come full circle with that whole diabetes Shirley Temple thing, but now one thing.
So Dad and Frank were very, very close. Sammy Davis, when I met him when he opened up at Harrah's, we were all going to a special press lunch, and it spared no expense. We were too close to the street. And so I rolled up on him, and I said, hey, I'm Lord Buckley's daughter. And he goes, your daddy does good work. I said, why, thank you so much.
Well, I just, I just wonder what it's like growing up around these famous people, because, I grew up around, like I said, just people who
fix cars.
They fix cars. They would come over the house, and I'd be like, what do you want? And they would be like, we're just here
to see Bob.
To see your dad, and, we don't have any words of wisdom for you.
Yeah,
they didn't know how to do
I want to
anything.
know more about that. I mean, I've heard all of Laurie's stories, but your childhood is a mystery, Eddie.
Look at me.
Although he's posting pictures on Instagram of himself at like 40 or 30. I don't know.
I think it was in my 30s, late
Dude,
30s.
I mean, you were like you look like you're ready to investigate a murder. Like you look like a cop in New York. Like
really?
like a detective. Yeah, you had like a...
Follow me on Instagram. Hold it. Let's just cool it with the Lord Buckley stuff.
No,
follow me.
You're just touching the surface. See,
I know.
We were perfect children.
In what way?
When Lord Buckley said something, we did not think twice about it. we were so perfect. Hello, how do you do? He says, "This is Princess Laurie, Prince Richard."
You were the royal family.
We were and they all became members of the royal family, whether you liked it or not. I said I was a princess born into a royal court that existed only amongst those who agreed that it was so, and it was a fact. And
your dad was a very loving man, yeah?
Yeah. Well, then I didn't realize until when I had a writing partner, a guy named Bill Millman, and I mortgaged my ranch that I had just down the street, and because I said, my dad would not let us go out for trick-or-treating. He never wanted his children to beg for money, ever. Halloween was out, so the joyous thing we had after he died was we got to trick-or-treat. Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, he put his foot down trick-or-treating.
Everywhere we went.
Yeah.
We were perfect. People went home and beat their kids. Why aren't you like those Buckley kids? They always do everything they're told. Yeah, it's just the way it was. But we went out everywhere. Now, when they joined the Follies, when we hit Miami, we were staying at Lady Face. She played Mazeppa in the old movie where she was a chick that played the trumpet with the strippers. And we stayed at her mansion. She had this great mansion. And
in Miami?
Uh-huh. So Dad and Mom got a call to join the Ziegfeld Follies. My mom's, she was absolutely stunning, beautiful figure. And so they both got hired, and then we flew up, first to train, and then up to New York while they were in rehearsal. We had a dear friend of ours, and he took care of us kids, took us to Central Park, got to go to the zoo, and when it was time for them to hit the road, trains every week. Oh, it was an amazing thing. And sure enough, we cried when we said goodbye to Lord Jocko. He was so precious. And then we went on train rides and got to go for, I'd say it was a good 6 months before the show just ran its ran. And we had a ball, and then it was...
The Ziegfeld Follies in Miami?
No, in New York.
In New York?
Mm-hmm. I was born in New York.
Right.
Yeah. And so...
How long did you live in New York? That's where I'm from.
You mean from which time?
Well, you were born in New York, and how long were you there? I was born in New York,
so they were probably...
You went back and forth?
We were probably... No, it started... Dad started going off. When he finished the Follies, that's when Dad said, pack it up and let's go to Vegas. He had already started booking in Vegas because he was perfect. Carl Cohen loved him. It was fantastic. So Dad was working all the time. They gave him something to do at the Sands. He was up in front of the building and doing his thing. They started to have accidents. They started watching
People
him
would run off the road
instead of the steering wheel.
That's saying something, because really it's beautiful women scantily clad that do that these days.
Yeah,
so for a man, I mean, in general, when you're looking at a woman,
you're trying to drag people into a place.
No, when you're driving, like you're driving and you see a woman scantily clad. I mean, that's caused accidents. Men running off the road because they're gawking at some. So he was able to do that without being a woman and taking any of her clothes off.
Right.
So we were very obedient and very cool, and you could take us anywhere. They never picked us up because we were crying and we went to...
But it sounds like your obedience, like you're saying you're very obedient, and it sounds like your obedience was not a bad thing. It was like you guys really loved doing what your dad said because you loved him. Is that correct? Because I was forced into obedience. By
non-royal people.
In a working class, when there was a working class. Now it's just people who drive around in Uber. They're coffee baristas. And barista, as you know, is an Italian word for there is no manufacturing base. Right? And, you could do this job. So anyway, yeah. So,
but see, remember now, we were perfect. We could be out. They'd wake us up. See, their idea of babysitting was to go to a really nice hotel, and they lock the door, say, "Don't leave your room." Didn't have babysitters.
Your mom and dad. That was your idea of Their idea of babysitting.
That's how we had to endure, So, but we didn't mind. So Mom said they'd come home from being out. They'd come home 2 or 3 in the morning at this one time. And
how old were you when they did that?
We were probably 2, 3 years old, something like that.
Okay, well, they should have been reported.
They walk in. Well, in those days, they didn't give a crap, Turn that kid over, And so there was all of these bobby pins and cream jars opened, and made this whole mess in this beautiful apartment, and we were casually sleeping on the floor, as innocent as little lambs. And so
Yeah.
wherever we went, we always said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. People went home and, fluffed up their kids real harshly because you say thank you, you're welcome, because they'd never seen children being so natural but obedient. And we did not question it because he could make it rough on you.
Both of your childhoods make me appreciate mine.
There you go.
Why? You didn't meet Sammy Davis Jr. or
No,
Debbie
but
Reynolds?
I don't know if I could have done that. I don't know
Yeah.
if I would have that I might not have worked. I might have ended up being the the Prince William or the Prince Andrew of the group. I might have ended up being the deviant.
Let me ask Laurie a couple of questions because one thing that really intrigued me, Steve knows Laurie for about 10 years, you said.
Yeah.
And she said, Laurie has some letters from Henry Miller. Now, Henry Miller, a lot of you, again, won't know who Henry Miller is because, I don't know, you're idiots? Could that be it?
They don't read. They don't make it in Braille. I don't know what
They
it is.
read David Sedaris, but
You read David Sedaris. But Henry Miller, Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, Sexus, Nexus, and Plexus. Anyway, Henry Miller, who, got famous because, his books got banned because he had but there was very explicit
by
sexual
the Supreme
material.
Court
that's right.
Is that right?
would not permit him to be in print in America. So, but he proved to them.
Which was great publicity for him.
Well, what was even greater, they had to eat it. Because just because you think pornography is evil, that it should be.
It is now, but back then,
No,
it was.
it's still okay as long as you're not doing it in the kindergarten class.
Well, have you seen it lately? Ugh.
Well, I don't watch it.
Right.
It's just-
I just listen to it in my car.
yeah, that's right.
No, I won't watch
seriously,
it.
he
Is it a stick shift?
No, I can't drive a stick shift. I never learned.
Apparently not in the car.
Yeah, I listen to porn in the car because it's too violent to watch. It's just everything. Everybody's in a black.
They
hood
wonder
with a
why kids
ball
are shooting
gag.
kids in school. I go, it's enough
I don't think
of
it's
this.
pornography, even though that's part attributing factor.
Well, they took it away from him, and Henry sat up on the mountain and got his way. He did. He figured it out. It's illegal to talk to Americans like that who are free to have freedom of speech, but not pornography.
Well, Henry
The
Miller.
P word? What?
Now, Henry Miller, I mean, I had a dream once. I don't think I ever told you this, but I had a dream where I was going through a rough period in my life as an artist. And I am an artist, and you folks are just civilians who install carpet, whatever you do. But, right, they're the plebeians, would you say?
You
Anyway,
work in the ammonia factory, Eddie. Come on, give him some credit.
you work in an ammonia factory, and I dream big. Anyway, I had a dream that I was trying to climb a ladder. And Henry Miller was at the top of the ladder, and he was extending his hand to me. And it was a very powerful dream because he's always been my muse. Henry Miller has always been my muse. And I went to the Henry Miller Museum, which we were just talking about in Big Sur, and I saw this exhibit of, it was a ladder. I don't know if you remember this at the Henry Miller Museum, but it's a ladder that doesn't reach the bottom. And I was like, holy shit. I had never been there before, but I dreamt about
You had the dream first?
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, and that's when I
some
felt.
wild shit.
That's when I felt. Now, you don't have this. You folks out there in YouTube land, you don't have anything like this. All your dreams are like, oh, I'm in a parade. Anyway.
Well, let's talk about the Ziegfeld Follies. My mother was the most beautiful. She had the greatest costumes, red and pink and fantastic.
Is this going to lead to Henry Miller?
Well, it just was on the way.
Okay.
And so, because he was in the corner, just kidding. And it turned out that Kay Ballard was in the show. She was Lady Kay, as we called her. She was fantastic.
She got known for a popular sitcom called something My Mother. You know what I'm talking about, Kay Ballard?
I'm sure I saw it. I loved her. She was fantastic.
She was a very kind of vaudevillian.
She was definitely. She could sing, dance, twist. you
Oh,
name
really?
it. Oh, she could be anything she
Okay.
wanted to be. And the Follies were a lot of fun. And so my mom got to dance, and we traveled every week. We're on a different train, and then we got about 5 or 6 months into it, and then it was time. over, so Dad went back out to Vegas, and Vegas loved him downtown, loved him out of town, and
loved him on Fremont Street.
And of course, now you remember, Lord Buckley's relationship with Al Capone.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Oh, yes. Dad had no fear. And he was working these nightclubs, and he would do crazy things. And Al Capone said Dad was the only person who ever made him laugh. And so, yeah, other people weren't laughing because bam, 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 And so he went and got Dad a club called the Shea Buckley. And opening night, Dad wanted to give them something exciting to remember him by. And so he went throughout the audience and he picked up all the furs and coats and expensive things that were there, and he picked them up all throughout the audience. And he went on stage and he set everything down beautifully, and then he takes some gasoline and he pours it all over the courts. And there's this beautiful, incredible fur coats of very expensive things. And Dad cracks that match and lights the pile of furs and expensive jackets all on stage. Women are screaming, crying, hysterical.
Sounds like a good act.
Well, you can guess.
Talk about subversive.
That Capone thought that was pretty goddamn funny. And so he bought them all new coats. There was a lot of crying going on, but he bought all the ladies new coats.
Oh, you mean he actually did burn real expensive things? Your dad?
Full on black minks to past your kneecap, not little girly things, really thousands of dollars.
Your dad did that?
Yes, that was opening night.
Wow.
That's how you doing. But remember, he was a walkathon man.
Meaning?
He was in the biggest walkathon things that ever were. He traveled from place to place.
This is Depression era, right?
Yeah, and he loved it. And he could.
This was the 30s?
This was the 30s, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he was hilarious.
He would entertain the poor, the migrants, everybody who was in the Dust Bowl, right? Wasn't he down there?
In the Dust Bowl, he entertained the Jodes?
Yeah.
Ma, want to see Buckley, Lord Buckley. Now you just stay here, Tom.
Well,
no, Ma.
See, Capone,
I want to see Lord.
Capone and his sister had front row seats. I figured that's where they met Dad. And so Dad would be, he would literally ride a Sparklets bottle around the wooden sides of the big arenas, and then he would pratfall right into a beautiful girl's lap, in spite of the fact that her boyfriend or her husband was there. Oh, what are they going to do? Because Dad was too fast. He could leap things. He was nothing. He'd been a lumberjack. See, he was.
Your dad was a lumberjack?
He was born in Tuolumne. You know where Tuolumne is?
I don't.
Okay, it's right up there, up north, up by Sonora.
In California.
Yes. And so Dad, but when there was 12 births, 6 that lived. And so my dad and my Aunt Nell, his younger sister, was or older sister, no, younger. And so they played together. So what they did when they needed money, they went over to the bar, because there were more bars than grocery stores in Tuolumne, because they were all miners.
Miners, not miners.
RS, yeah.
Not
children. DRS. And miners are a despicable lot, are they not?
Well, I guess because their faces were black from the soot, and people said terrible things.
Yeah, those are the people
but
over my crib. Those were the people over my crib.
Here's what happened. They got singing in front and singing to all the drunks. Mm-hmm. And they picked the songs of the day, and they're singing it in harp, because the whole family could speak in harmony, play ukulele. They all had skills. And so they're singing and they're dances and they're throwing nickels and dimes on the dust. And so the minute they get a moment to stop, they're diving in, they're picking up all the dimes and the nickels, and they're running off. And then my Aunt Nell tells little Richie that because the nickel is bigger,
your brother,
it's worth more. So when the day he found out that she was screwing him, that the dime was where the money was, he went crazy. He started chasing her all over the hills, everywhere he could, and he had a little pocket knife, and he's after her. He wants revenge, So he gets her in the hand and cuts her hand right there, and she runs to her mother, and she says, "Look, Mom, look what little Richie did to me." And she's squeezing. She's been wanting it to bleed more, so it looked more professional, And she goes, "You deserved it, don't you?" She goes, "I don't have any sympathy for you. That was frontier justice."
Frontier justice.
Oh, yes. And then they said, because they never saw their dad, because he was always in the mines. And so one day his mom looks at the kids and she goes, "Okay, one day you're out by the railroad tracks and you're going to see a man get off in a plaid shirt, nice and clean, and he's got his knapsack. And she said, you're going to, and he's got his shirt, another shirt neatly folded over his shoulder. I want you to come and tell me right away when you see him. So some time went on, and then the guy got off the train. And they go, there's that guy. We got to go tell Mom. Aunt Nell says, we ran through the broken fences. The wood things were flying everywhere, running. And they get into the room, and then they look at this man. He's kissing their mother. You son of a bitch. What are you doing kissing my mom? And he goes, hello, son. How you doing?
Now, I feel like you dodged my question about Henry Miller. Because you haven't. I set it up that he was my muse, and you said you have some letters.
He was amusing. He was amusing.
Frontier does justice.
He was amazing, Henry Miller.
Well, remember, he was a man of many stories, and he spent time in Europe. He loved the freedom to write. That's why, the really little one got the big.
He had a scathing attitude toward America, and you could read Henry Miller's novel called The Air-Conditioned Nightmare. Like, he would say things like those skyscrapers were tombs, like people would just die in those tombs. He hated corporate culture. I mean, right now, if Miller were alive now, I don't know what he
he would have been his worst fear realized.
Yeah.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can imagine now, my grandfather, his father, died from the black lung. And they had an older brother
whose father died from black
Lord
lung?
Buckley's father. The whole Buckley trans, it was gone.
He was a minor.
Yeah, but he got the black lung, which is a horrible disease and a terrible death. Mm-hmm. And so it was really rough. And then their oldest brother, who they loved with all their heart, because he loved to play with them. He was wonderful. And when it came time for him to get off of work, the kids would be waiting for him because he played with them. And he had a great sense of humor. And so somebody told him a joke, and he started laughing as he went back. One of the pieces of metal hit him in the head and killed him, just like that.
Who is this?
This is their
Henry Miller.
This is my dad's brother.
Okay, this has nothing to do with Henry Miller.
He's coming, and so he wrote a poem about it. No, but it was beautiful to see what they suffered through and what they went through the depression and everything that went with it. But the walkathons took care of that. People made a living, and I didn't know what busking was.
Busking. Yeah. Well, your dad, it just sounds like he was almost. I mean, he just was out there with the people, which is what
he was like. You know what he was? He was a comic on Venice Beach, except traveling. Basically, he was an act on Venice Beach. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what Jack Jones said when I met him. I was upstage with Rodney Dangerfield, and he comes up and he says, "I was 16 years old, walking down the beach. And I hear this man talking. He said he's saying words I never heard. I didn't quite understand. He said, it was your dad. He said, I just flipped. He said, and he became a Lord Buckley fan the rest of his life.
And Venice Beach?
Yeah.
Who?
Lord Buckley was on the beach. Because, when you needed some money, we had a big mansion. It was a little costly. And so Dad was out there doing his thing, doing his routines. He's just giving them the same gig he gave everybody
in Venice
else.
Beach?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so he's doing his thing, his oration, and Jack says, God, I couldn't believe it, Laurie. That was your dad. I said, yeah, well, that's, and I love Jack.
Now they have guys on Venice Beach. The guy I've seen a lot on Venice Beach is a guy who rollerblades playing Jimi Hendrix. That's what we have now. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask you, did you ever consider when you first moved out here doing stand-up? Because you would have been a great Venice Beach maniac.
I thought of doing that. And I used to watch this comic, Charlie Barnett.
Oh, yeah. That's Washington Square.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How did you didn't live in New York, did you?
No, but I was in black comedy, so I know Charlie Barnett was supposed to get Saturday Night Live, and Eddie Murphy, he died and Eddie Murphy got it. And so that's why we have had Eddie Murphy, for...
Wow.
Yeah. But he's considered one of the greatest live performers.
He was great, man. He would do jokes like, I do a lot of jokes. I do a lot of racist jokes, and I want to say to you, we are all human beings. Like, he would really get everybody. He goes, we're all human beings. We all have our flaws. We're all people of God. And he would pause, and then he would go, except Mexicans. Like he would then take the rug out from under you again, like Barnett. But Barnett was a great live performer, and I always found that intimidating because, I mean, now I'm starting to do it, but I always was scared to do it.
You talked about that. He said he was not. I mean, I can't imagine, but back in New York, when you were coming up in those clubs, the Luna Lounge and places like that, you weren't confident about yourself. You weren't.
Yeah, I'm still, worried a lot.
Well, you don't want to piss anybody off. There's maniacs out there.
I'll tell you though, you're right about that, but you can't. As a comic, you have to be fearless. And I'll tell you, I'm nervous before I get on stage, but once I get on stage, I feel this kind of, and I'm sure you saw this in your dad. I feel this kind of like energy that goes through me, and it gives me a license to say anything, and it makes me kind of fearless. Yeah. And you still haven't answered the Henry Miller thing.
That's
what's
because
the matter?
I was going to tell you about Rodney Dangerfield.
You don't want to talk about Henry Miller?
No, I do.
This is a great Senate inquiry.
We'll have to pick which one first.
Tell you do it. You pick.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the segment of the show where Laurie Buckley brings out handwritten letters from Henry Miller to her father, Lord Buckley.
Yes.
And what can you give us the dates of sort of when these correspondences were taking place? The general.
Do you have the letters with you?
Of course I
Can I see one?
Absolutely.
Okay, while you're looking for the letter, I just want to say that we did have a couple of messages today. This week or last week. And if you want to leave a message for the show, the number is 424-262-0904. And here's some messages we had. You ready to play them, Air? Yeah. Okay, we had a couple of messages, and you're lucky to hear them. You're lucky you're tuned in, especially the people who have found us on YouTube willy-nilly. All right, here goes one.
There it is.
Tell you guys how much I love the podcast. Long-time listener, first-time caller. It's about 10 a.m. Hey, Eddie and Steve. My name's Matt. I just wanted to tell you guys how much I love the podcast. Long-time listener, first-time caller. It's about 10 a.m. here in Texas, and I don't have a job, so I've been hammering hard seltzer since 4 a.m., and I figured I'd give you guys a call. I'm not trying to get on air or anything. I just wanted to let you guys know how funny I think you guys are, and I just finished listening to the Scott Thompson podcast.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I just wanted to call out Scott on something. I think dark chocolate is definitely a good thing. I think I'll take 96% cocoa to a 4% sugar ratio over Hershey's any day of the week.
Me too.
So that was something I felt like was an error on his part. Eddie, I'm going to come see you in Fort Worth on the 12th or 13th of December, whenever you're going to be there. I'm in Dallas, so you're about 50 miles away from my house, and that's a short drive when you live here in the DFW area. So love the podcast. Keep doing what you're doing. Steve Lally is pretty good, too. So you guys have a nice day. Thanks.
Lovely call.
That
lovely
was so
call.
great. That broke the fast of having no calls for a long. By the way, Matt, you, a out-of-work Texan, eating dark chocolate, you are our target audience. It's nice to know you're out there, and thank you for letting me know I'm hanging with the Pepitone. Okay.
Another call that we didn't get to was this one. Here we go.
Hey, Eddie. Hey, Lolly. Love the show. This is Eric. I called last week, and I left 2 voicemails back-to-back, and it didn't make any sense, which makes it even funnier. But now I have a quick story and a question to follow up with. But about a month and a half ago, I was in New York. I'm from New Hampshire, out in this beautiful first real snowstorm of the season right now. And I was outside of this Pizza John, pizza restaurant in Brooklyn with my friend Ella. We're like 2 or 3 feet from the door, and out walks this man, and I immediately recognize him, like right off the bat. And he's an A-list celebrity, and we make eye contact. We're looking straight at each other, and I just look him dead in the eyes, and I go, "Jimmy Fallon?" And immediately this man puts his head straight up, looks away and starts walking away from me. And he's, still like 3 or 4 feet in front of me. He's facing the other way. And I just yell out, I'm like, "Hey, Jimmy." And at that moment, his private driver opens up the doors to the Escalade. He puts his pizzas in the car, and he sits in. And, he still has his blinders on. He's just, like, looking straight up, really wide-eyed. And they drive off. And I'm kind of in awe. I'm like, wow, like, the first real A-list celebrity I've ever met. Like, that's insane. And a few minutes go by, and someone in the pizza restaurant goes, "Hey, man, that wasn't Jimmy Fallon. That was Jimmy Kimmel." And I've never really felt like such a New Hampshire hick before. Pretty cultured, not to brag, but that happened on a Saturday. And the even crazier part is 3 days later on Tuesday morning, my mom sends me a text, and it's linked to a YouTube video, and it's a clip from the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and it's Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel talking about how they're not the same person for 5 minutes.
Oh my God!
And this will lead into the question, but that's late night TV. They probably made like $50,000 off of that 5-minute segment. I don't really know, but my question to you guys is, when the ecocide officially happens, who would you rather eat first, Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel? Big fan of the show. Love you guys. Keep being great.
That was a great story.
Great call.
I don't know. I would think I would. Let me see. What do we have here?
Oh, I'll answer that while he's looking.
Laurie. Oh my God! Look at how young you guys are. That's Daddy and you, right?
Is it?
Oh my God, Lord Buckley.
That's her mom. That's her mother.
Lord
Eddie
Buckley.
That's Lady Lord Buckley.
Oh, is that your mom?
It's my mama.
Oh,
but
okay.
We do look very
You do.
close.
What's that, Aaron? This one?
There we go.
That's
Now we can see.
Lord Buckley
And Lady Lord
and
Buckley.
Lady Lord Buckley.
And
What was your
Jesus.
mom's first name?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Handsome.
Beautiful, beautiful shot. Hold on. So we want to respond to this call. Put on your headphones so you can hear this
Okay,
calls.
so you want to
So
go
Jimmy
first?
Fallon
Or Jimmy
Now the
Kimmel?
question was, who would you eat first after the ecocide?
He's a vegan, so would you still break your?
No, people are fine to eat if you're a vegan, because people are the ones who torture the animals. So.
Okay, but for me, who I can't digest flesh. So
well, probably me neither. But I think I would eat Fallon first, because
Yeah.
I think he deserves to be
He's
eaten.
got liver.
And I think Kimmel soon after.
Main-
Let's put it that way. How about you?
main course Kimmel with a side of Fallon. By the way, that call is proof that nobody's watching fucking television, network television, which is a wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric, for sort of
All right, let's go. Let's get these calls in. That was Eric.
We have more.
Oh, we do. I think. No, this is a crate. That's
Well, remember he said he left us 2 other calls.
okay. Here we go.
I just got finished listening to the very hilarious
This is hilarious.
Jackie Monahan episode. And I just wanted to leave this message for Steve. Steve and Lolly, this is for you, brother. It's not Downtown Abbey. It's Downton Abbey. Downton. Downton, not downtown. Now I'm trying my best to control my anger so I can be a productive human in this society. But if I hear downtown out of your mouth again,
Man.
God damn it. I don't even watch the show, but I know. And I trust in the goddamn Brits. If they say Downton, it's Downton, not downtown. Downton's probably not even a word, but the Brits have said it, so it's true. It's Downton.
Man.
Not downtown. Downton Abbey.
That was almost like a Lord
Jesus
Buckley.
Christ.
Oh, there's more.
Mother Mary, help me.
God, that was a great piece. piece, man.
Yeah, that was almost spoken word.
That was almost spoken word, and it was done so beautifully.
Yeah.
Thank you for
From a
the call.
guy who
I don't
doesn't
think you,
watch
I
the
don't
show.
think you left your name, but call again. That was just a funny bit. And Steve doesn't.
We both don't watch the show, but I appreciate your
Here's our last.
pedantic rage.
Here's our last. I watched the show. Oh, you guys.
I'm
don't
talking
watch
to the
show.
guy.
Great show. Here we go.
Hey, it's Jeremy from Austin, and I was wondering how you feel about flat earthers, and I want to know how you feel about round earthers, people who think the earth is round, because if you ask me, they should both stop it. Just stop it, because they're objectifying it. They're objectifying the earth.
That's cute.
They're objectifying the earth. What do you think?
I don't think
Do you
about
think-
either one of these fucking things. Ever. I don't. Unless it shows up in my fucking timeline in my Yahoo, then I go, oh, there's people thinking about that again. Then I'll think about it. Haven't given it a thought. I haven't processed it. I don't. What do you think?
I think, you don't want to objectify anybody. I think we all have a tendency to objectify planets. You know what I mean? Like when I see Saturn or Jupiter in the night sky, I go, oh,
But what if
I'd love to fuck.
What if a celestial being
Yeah.
objectifies you? What if it wants your body? Then
I want to be known for who I am.
But you could get action. I would not mind being objectified by any.
All right. I feel like you're wrong. Let's see.
Is that?
Oh, no. Hold on.
My God, man. How many calls did we get?
No, that's it. That's it. So thank you for the calls, everybody. And again, fuck, I hate all these apps. Okay. So again, you can leave a message at 424-262-0904. Somebody left the text. You can text message us too at that number. Dear Eddie and Steve, as a minion of the military-industrial complex, I wish to inform you that your podcast has now been seized by imperial forces. You may now proceed to your imminent doom. If you continue your activity, you may be fisted repeatedly without remorse. Speaking of action. You want to read our ad today?
Oh, man.
We have ads.
What an
We haven't
honor.
gotten paid yet, but here's our ads. Go ahead.
Footy flippies. Australia's on fire, and it's either climate breakdown or God's wrath. All I'm saying is if somebody would have made a Crocodile Dundee 3, maybe the US of A wouldn't have waited 2 months to send firefighters. In this what have you done for me lately economy, it's good to remember those of us who've made a positive impact on the world and didn't just double down on cute koalas. I'm talking, of course, about footy flippies, the world's most comfortable flip-flops. If you've ever tried them, you Vegemite say they are the most comfortable flip-flops you've ever worn. If you order a pair of footy flippies using the hashtag Pep Talks, you are automatically entered into our drawing for an all-expense-paid 2-week tour the coast of Australia in your lifetime supply of footy flippies, which was a really cool idea when the marketing team thought of it in November and bought non-refundable tickets, so now we're fucking stuck. You and a friend can explore the raging hellhole England set aside for prisoners to inbreed in, where literally everything will probably kill you, including the air now. Don't forget the coupon code, hashtag Pep Talks, to enjoy footy flippies, the world's most comfortable flip-flops, while an entire continent tries to murder you and one very lucky friend.
I just want you to read that, not to yourself. So do you have any...
This is Steve Allen.
Do you have any Henry Miller?
I believe I do, sir.
What's your impression of Henry Miller, though? What was your impression of Henry Miller?
He was absolutely wonderful to me. Wonderful to my family. Loved my family, as you'll see in his letters.
What's your favorite novel by Henry Miller?
I kept it in my bookshelf
Which one?
in case the Tropic of Cancer. It's a beginner's, you know.
So is this a letter from Henry?
This is Big Sur, California, February 15th,
Here we go.
1955.
1955. There were 3 more years, and then I came into this hell known as the world. Go ahead.
Dear Lord Buckley, a man in Reseda, California made me a gift of the album Euphoria some weeks ago. Since then, my wife and I have played the recording over numerous times, and when the right friend comes along, we force him to sit down and listen to it, particularly the section called The Naz, which I consider a classic and, at the same time, like nothing I have ever heard before in any language. For weeks now, we have been unable to advise our friends where to obtain the record, no address being given on the recording, which I think is a grave omission for you and all concerned. Only the great good luck did I get into the track, though writing the music critic of the San Francisco Chronicle. In the interim, I had written numerous people I thought ought to know you and your recording. How a man with your great gift can remain unknown to so many people is still a mystery to me. I should have thought that by this time you would be as well known as Carey, Charles Lawton, the Lawton who delivered the Gettysburg Address in the movie, if you remember. Of the Via people, or the Chatton Distributing has only literature about you, which I might have to distribute among my friends there and abroad. I would thank you to let me know. You may well be able to do without the publicity, but I doubt that my friends can do without you. What you have to give us is unique. If you had access to the pulpit, you would undoubtedly make concerts by the million. I say it as a writer who knows the power of language, the miracles it can work. I sometimes assume that you also compose the scripts. You are as magnificently render, but whether you did or not makes no difference. You thereby made us who listen live a little more. What I would love to know, my dear Lord Buckley, is, have you made any other recordings? And if not, why not? It seems to me that you have a world to conquer. You haven't even single rival that I can think of, even straight renderings from the Bible, from Shakespeare, from Lautréamont, from Rimbaud would startle the frogs, the snails, the turtles who sit and listen to television night after night. I spoke of the Naz above all, the murder piece is almost equally effective. I believe you could even take a passage from The Stones of Venice, Co-Shades of Ruskin, and make us away and froth at the mouth. I stopped lest you think I have lost all sense of judgment. Read between the lines, if you will, and know that my enthusiasm and sincerity is genuine. May these few words give you the courage to continue unabashed, and if ever you should be passing this way, be assured of a hearty welcome here. Sincerely yours, Henry Miller.
Wow. And this was before he became friends with your dad, and then your dad became friends.
This was the beginning, and there's another letter also of what, he just couldn't get enough of it.
Wow, Henry Miller had nice handwriting.
That's my mother's.
Oh, that's your mom's handwriting?
Because he had...
She transcribed it?
She was, she learned this in school and did it. All of Dad's posters for his shows were all done in calligraphy. She never made a mistake. It was amazingly beautiful. It is absolutely wonderful.
So your dad, so Henry Miller was like promoting your dad. He was like, you should be a lot more.
His power, as you'll see, I don't know if I have it in this bag, but he was very concentrated on the use of language. That meant a lot. When he saw this hipster stuff going on, he totally flipped. Dad used all those words. He felt them in his personal spot, that what he thought was this too. And this
again,
here.
go on YouTube and punch in Lord Buckley, and you'll hear a lot of this incredible stuff.
Now, did you ever hear of the Outside at the Inside in Palo Alto? It was near the university. They couldn't serve drinks, but it was a coffee house.
Okay. No,
And so this is from Michael H. DuPont of the DuPonts, okay?
Right.
He says, to HRH Lord Buckley.
Is this the guy who killed the wrestler?
No.
Okay. Foxcatcher was
June
about
25th,
to do...
1960, Dad was still alive. your swingin' lordships, may I say that this has been an extremely wild and way out 20-week engagement. I want to thank you for a fine boost in trade and many a far-out message. You are a man of exceeding talent, and you come on with such warmth and solid wit and beautiful humor that many is the night I can remember the whole place flipping. Outside at the inside will long remember your success, and I hope that many more audiences will be treated with the only substitute for peyote and the Bible, all swung together. May the swangin', jazz, fly chicks cover you forever, and I trust we shall see you again soon. Yours very reverently, Michael H. DuPont.
Wow, I didn't know the DuPonts were so cool. I mean, at least that DuPont, because they make chemicals that kill.
But when you can afford to experience,
That's true.
there you are.
That's true.
And so
That's awesome.
I know he was totally.
Is there any other?
I went to his house. We got to hang. He lives right on the beach when you come off of Topanga Canyon and head right out there.
Who, DuPont?
DuPont, yeah.
Oh, he's got a place. Yeah,
We
he's
got to
a
hang at his place. He was totally flipped out by the beauty of the language. And at night, at the outside, at the inside, the ceiling would open, and you'd see the stars. That was part of. That's why they call it the outside at the inside.
Right.
The whole ceiling.
Do you know the only way the ceiling opened when I was growing up was when there was an accident and you could see the stars because we had no roof.
What kind of accident took out your roof? You remember that happening? You're just making this shit up.
No, comets, asteroids, or just trees.
Hail?
Or people throwing themselves off of things. Yeah.
See, my favorite piece was murder. Murder comes from man's inability to control woman.
Is that your dad's piece?
And the rotten, vicious, terrible things she does to me are beautiful.
That's from your dad?
That's him.
Oh, wow.
It was my favorite piece.
It was.
Says I was going to cut her up, chop her over here, send her to Seattle, send her to here, and he does the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the way, Daddy, you just kill me, you know. And
There's a Henry Miller. We got a Henry Miller here.
November 18th, 1959.
From who?
To Lord, from Henry.
This is to your brother?
No, this is Lord Richard Buckley. That's Dad's name.
Okay.
It's also Richard's. His most euphoric lordship greetings. What a treat to hear your new shatter-busting record delivered like a true hipster with variations as alla Paganini, Gilles Leras, and Marquis de Queensberry. It seems to me that your lordship opened a new vein, leading to the medulla oblongata, hold on this one, and the cloaca maxima. It's all so very alive and jumping, and in the pauses one can hear this atoms exploding out there in the Milky Way, where the grass comes up every once in 10 billion years, and there are no mothballs or Frigidaires, no box office receipts, no railroads, no crucifixions, rosy or otherwise. The one called God's Own Drunk is absolutely superb, a classic. It takes one back to the fountain of ecstasy buried in the wilds of Patagonia. It is often far out, your lordship. You must have drunk from the holy bottle that Rebellius speaks of. I know you have drunk from many a bottle, but this one is the elixir, the Alduvai of the gods. May your lordship and her ladyship, as well as the little ones, bless them. Continue on the path of love in a perpetual state of grace. All here salute you reverently. Your devoted admirer, Henry Miller.
Love it. I love it. I wish I met your dad and Henry Miller, you know.
Oh, they loved each other so much. And then Emil White, he started writing to my mother.
Emil White, Henry Miller.
He ran the Beauty of the Museum and that whole, and he had beautiful cards it was a wonderful artist himself. And after Dad passed away, they would write to each other, and he was just a lovely man, because Henry had beautiful people around him, you know, that loved what they were doing. And here he was up in the crest of the mesa, you know.
Do you have any of Henry Miller's watercolors? He became a pretty damn good watercolorist.
Oh, well, he says that when you paint, it's like discovering a new language. He has said brilliant things. I couldn't put them fast enough to bring them to you. But it says, this is Big Sur, 10/30/59.
Another Henry Miller?
Mm-hmm. He says, your beloved mystices, thinking of you often and hoping all's well. After you left, I felt marvelous. You have the magic touch. Besides, I wasn't really ill, just playing possum. the love to your wonderful children. I felt their presence. Wow. Stay well now and live long and keep radiating love and peace. Easy does it. Henry Miller.
Wow.
That's in his handwriting.
Is this his handwriting?
Yeah.
That's his handwriting.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Your
That is-
beloved Majesties, thinking of you often and hoping all's well after you left. I felt you were the medic type. Besides, I wasn't really ill. Just plain possum. My love to your wonderful children. I felt their presence. Stay well now and live long and keep radiating love and peace. Easy does it. Oh, that's
Isn't that beautiful?
beautiful.
Now, this is Steve Allen.
Steve Allen.
He says, Dear Laurie, thanks for your letter of December 6th. I'm doing a book on comedians called More Funny People and have the reasonably distinct impression that several months ago I wrote several paragraphs on your father, who is a very talented gentleman indeed. Second thought, I'm enclosing some Xerox pages from a book called The Last Laugh. It is published by William Morrow and Company.
I read that.
It's a great book. I've read it too.
Yeah, it's good.
In case you want to get your own copy, this is the section that deals with your father. I used to book him on my daily CBS show in the early 50s and also saw him a couple of times in clubs. It seems to me now, looking back some 25 years, that he was, as the old saying goes, ahead of its time. If he'd come to the scene in the 70s, his wild, uninhibited sort of comedy probably would have made him a major star. All good wishes. Cordially, Steve Allen.
I love that letter.
Dad ran around his desk, did all kinds of stuff, and he loved it because Dad was a wild man. You know, there's nothing to him to just go switch, boom, off he went. You know.
What year did your dad pass?
He died in 1960, November 12th.
He was young.
Yes, he was. Died at age 54.
Yes.
And the tragedy, which
He had a stroke, right?
Well, kind of. It was when we lived in San Rafael. Dad was working in San Francisco very well. You know, all the places that were cool, and but he started to get this stuff going on in Cleveland. I think he started Cleveland, went into Chicago, and then New York was waiting for him until something else happened.
I know. I read about it today, and it was about a cabaret card.
It was even deeper than that.
Is that right?
Because here's what happened is I researched it when I was going to UNLV. I requested to the New York Times, please send me what this is, you know. But what actually happened, because I found the book written by Maxwell Cohen. It is worth a read.
What's the name of the book?
It's about the discard. I've got a copy of it here, but I won't. You'll have to send for it yourself. It is so much treasure, and it totally explains everything, and how the policeman decided to come up with a gig that any human being that was old enough to work in a restaurant could literally have to have a cabaret card. You're a waitress.
Any entertainer. Oh, a waitress too?
Waitress, dishwasher, anybody.
They were extorting people.
And they had over $1 million in the Policeman's Benevolent Fund. So they took Dad's right to work away. And Harold Humes, who was an attorney, who dug Dad just totally, when you see what he writes something, he's not screwing around. He just lays it down. And Dad was really coming into the in crowd. David Amram, who wrote the Ode to Lord Buckley out of Virginia, I think it was, my mom's. And they both had a wonderful letter from her and his answer. And I had him, when I was up north, in California, I had him call in because he was so brilliant, and so we could talk. And then I spoke about Anita O'Day because Dad taught her how to sing, the singer, because she was missing it, you know. So Dad sat her down, taught her how to scat, and so and changed her life. And so she was at the top of the dunes.
You know what scat was in my family? It was like, scat! Get out of here. They never scatted.
Well, it goes with scram.
Scram.
And so I rolled up on her, and her friend that was sitting next to her was one of my dear friends. And I looked at her and I said, hello, Anita. I said, I'm Lord Buckley's daughter. She held me when I was a baby. She was there in the beautiful home they had on East 68th Street or something. And she was just thrilled. Glass ceiling, and the 12-piece black choir was singing and wailing and carrying on. So I just rolled up and I said, hello, Anita. I'm Lord Buckley's daughter. And she goes, what do you want? I said, I don't want anything. I came up here to see if you needed something. And so I just looked at her, and I said, and when I told the story on the radio, I said, oh, it was just another.
You know what your mother would say? Your mother would say, She was just not herself that day.
That's right.
Remember
Oh yes,
that.
she would always think she'd never said, and she swore you dated and timed it. It just would be a holiday. But what was beautiful is that after I told the story about her saying she didn't need anything, because I went that night down to Bogey's, and it was pouring rain, and I just got there. There was like an 8-piece live band, and she's wailing better than she damn well sounded any other time I'd heard her. But I said, well, when she wouldn't, when she said I don't need anything, I said it was on the radio. I said, just a bad heroin day. It happens. I read her book, just passing on what she shared with the rest of us.
Yeah.
Gave her a little stoop,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever hear of, or maybe this. Oh, okay. July 30th, 1956. Dear Lord Buckley, forgive me for not acknowledging sooner your recording Gettysburg. Just finished 2 books, tired. When I need a lift, I play it. Straight delivery before dinner. Jive. Give delivery after dinner. What does Charles Lawton think of it? Because if you see the movie, he did the whole Gettysburg.
Right.
Where it is a new pocketbook out, A Devil in Paradise, Signet, have moved on hand, or could send. There's a bit of its many give you an idea. Call me the itch. Love to you, Henry Miller.
In his handwriting, by the way.
In his hand, and that's his
Eddie-
art. That's his art.
Eddie, read.
That's his art?
Just read.
That's Miller's painting?
That's so cool.
Oh, my
Yeah,
God.
I've got-
Just so you can see it. I hope you're Henry Miller fans out there, but I doubt you are.
Now,
Am I right?
did you ever hear of Moondog? The poet, the blind poet?
A blind poet?
I have not
When
heard.
he was 12 years old, he stood on the corners of New York City and begging for anything. He made all of his clothes. He had lost his sight at the age of 12. They had explosions. His dad was a miner or something. It took away his eyesight. Well,
Wow.
we knew he loved him. He made all of his own clothes, his little things he made. And it says here, like Moondog on Broadway wearing a big blanket. After a while, I also became familiar with the strange figure of Moondog in medieval-looking leather, blanket, and Viking horns, usually stationed in the middle of the sidewalk on Broadway or 6th Avenue, selling sheet music. Moondog, crackpot, composer, and innovator of bizarre instruments such as the oo and the trimbas, like the clownish Puerto Rican street poet George Brandon, who I later encountered with his talking coconut in the East Village, turns out to be a fairly interesting artist. Or so say those who attend this occasional rooftop concerts. Philip Glass once let Moondog live at his place when he had nowhere to go. It's not the oddball quality of these figures that act me. But
Your dad wrote this?
no, but it's a story about the guy who my dad loved.
Moondog,
and
the
Moondog.
poet.
And but rather,
Blind poet.
But rather the way they throw themselves of others, their willed destruction of pride, respect, and even go itself. And then he talks about Lewis Hardin Moondog, who died in 1999, is unfairly trivialized by the quoted excerpt. He was a more substantial and more significant figure than the crackpot composer depicted there. He also played a small but significant role in rock history, with Adam Freed taking his name for his radio program and the band in turn taking it for an album title. Another Grossman managing artist, Janis Joplin, recorded one of his songs. He recorded at least a dozen albums of modernist classical music, one of which, Moondog, was sometimes favored by the most adventurous freeform radio programmers of the late 60s and early 70s. That album and several others are now available on CD. In 1998, his final album took place in the Beyond Jazz category of the annual Downbeat Critics poll, beating out Time Out of Mind, which finished third. The Downbeat Critics did name Dylan Beyond Artist of the Year, though, as I remember him from occasions when I saw him in Manhattan streets in the early 1970s. He was a more imposing figure than the photo suggests, but I've never seen a photo from his Manhattan period that I thought fairly represented him. The album cover, scan attached, glamorizes him too, but it's closer to the impression he made, I think. He's an obscure figure now, little documented outside the pages of New York City newspapers. I certainly don't mean to criticize Tricia for turning up the quoted material, and I don't want to rant any more than I already have, but as a cultural figure, he was much closer to the other folks Dylan listed than to a crackpot who gave rooftop concerts. This is beautiful. Let me just breathe in. a gaunt, blind musician known as Moondog, who was celebrated among New Yorkers for 2 decades as a mysterious and extravagantly garbed street performer, but who went on to win acclaim in Europe as an avant-garde composer, conducting orchestras before royalty, died Wednesday in a hospital in Munster, Germany. He was 83.
Oh, he lived to 83.
The cause was heart failure, said a friend, Iona Sommer. Day in and day out, the man was originally named Louis T. Harden, was an taciturn and unchanging a landmark of the Midtown Manhattan streetscape as the George W. Cohan statue in Duffy Square. For the late 1940s until the early 1970s, Harden stood at attention like a sentinel on the Avenue of Americas from 54th Street. No matter the weather, he invariably dressed in a homemade robe, sandals, a flowing cape, and a horned Viking helmet, the tangible expression of what he referred to as his Nordic philosophy. At his side, he clutched a long spear of his own manufacture. Most of the passers-by who dismissed him as the Viking of 6th Avenue, offering him contributions and buying copies of his music and poetry, were unaware that he had recorded his music on CBS, Prestige, Epic, Angel, and Mars labels. Harden's jazz-accented compositions, generally scored for small wind and percussion ensembles, often achieved a flowing tonal symphonic style. One of his songs, All Is Loneliness, became a hit when recorded by Janis Joplin. He wrote music for radio and television, gives me goosebumps, and television commercials, and one of his compositions was used on the soundtrack for the 1970 movie Drive, he said, with Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson directed that movie.
Along the way, Harden wrote Bohemian Broadways against the government's registrations, broadsides against the government regimentation, the world monetary system, and organized religion. He was celebrated by Beat Generation poets and late 1960s flower children. His passionate unconventionality drew praise from other critics and led to the interviews on many television shows, including both Today and The Tonight Show. Although many New Yorkers assumed that he had died after he vanished from his customary post in 74, Harden had actually...
He was there till 74?
Harden had actually been invited to perform his music in West Germany and decided to stay. He led an extraordinary life for a blind man who came to New York with no contacts and a month's rent, and who lived on the streets of New York for 30 years, said Dr. Robert Scotto, a professor of English and Baruch College of the City University of New York. Without question, he was the most famous street person of his time, a hero to a generation... a generation of hippies and flower children. Scotto was just completed a biography of Harden, Moondog, the Viking of 6th Avenue, which has not been published. After his performances in Hamburg, Harden again earned a living as a street performer. This time in Europe, he soon met Mrs. Sommer, whose father insisted on taking him into their home and supported Harden in his later years. He composed in Braille, and she transcribed his music and acted as his publisher and business manager. According to Scotto, they had an intimate working relationship, but neither of them ever described it as more than that. In his later years, Harden produced at least 5 albums in Europe, including a sound saga titled The Creation, and regularly performed his compositions with chamber and symphony orchestras before glittering audiences in Paris, Stockholm, and cities in Germany. Harding adopted the Moondog name in 1947, identifying himself, he said, with a former pet who howled at the moon. He was born in Maryville, Kansas, May 26th.
Laurie, I'm going to have to stop you because we're running to the end of the podcast, and I want to thank you so much for coming on, and maybe you could come back if you'd like to.
Well, of course I will.
Is that him?
That's him.
Oh my God, he looks nuts. Look at this.
Very quickly.
You can't see it.
He invited my mother and my brother and I to walk down to get to 42nd Street, and he wanted to go to Coney Island. So we went blind, got lost, because he was taking us on the knowledge. But we went to his apartment. It was one room. Wow. He turned on the light just for us, for he could not see, where he could cook a little meals. And he was our friend, and found his way all the way home all by himself. And he was gracious and kind and loving.
Wow. Well, this is an amazing journey, through kind of like Lord Buckley, your dad. I mean, he did Main Street. He did mainstream showbiz. And he also
was a street performer.
Made
a movie called We're Not Married.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. It's,
We're
you
not
can
meant
still-
to.
you
Can we see that?
Yeah, just find it. Just find it. It still lives. Yeah.
He's in it.
He's
Your
in
dad?
it. Yes, you can't.
Okay.
But I have great stories of people that met him in these wonderful summer houses where people hung out after, when they had their vacations, and what Dad did, and how somebody got his monkey drunk, and he lost his mind.
My God.
He had to get bananas to try to talk that monkey back down.
Aw.
But the hilarity of what they did, like he bought a lion once and brought it home until he. Ding dong! I'm in a car in a convertible. This is a wild lion. He had to take the one back.
Thank you, Laurie, for coming, and you were wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
pleasure.
Thank you for bringing
Yes.
Laurie.
That's
Thank you
an
for the
honor.
Henry Miller letters.
Honor to have you.
Yes.
Turning us on to Moondog.
We'll do part 2 sometime soon, okay?
No problem.
All right.
And now here's the end. This is written by Matt Rasamoto. I don't. Do you realize that with all the horrible, and I mean absolutely mind-blowingly awful things in this rotten meatball we call a planet, this amazing podcast is absolutely free? Suck on that fact, Jack. The production value alone, and then you add the star power? Laurie Buckley, all you had to do was listen to an ad about flip-flops. Not too shabby. It's not goddamn shabby at all. So hit the like button. Hit the like button, because we both know it's true, and subscribe, because if you are still listening to the delicate vibrato of my voice, it ain't because you like it, but because you're obviously addicted to my dulcet throat gurgles. It's an ASMR thing. Ask Siri about it. But if you are a true fan, you'll write a 5-star review on iTunes or hell, Yelp. Lord knows we don't get enough Yelp reviews. Some of you donate money to our website, but I spent all the money on Girl Scout cookies I shame ate in my car. Sorry, Dad. Maybe you'll get that kidney next year. Our engineer today, Aaron Brungardt. Also, Emma Erdbrink, one of our engineers. Producer, Matt Rasamoto. Leave a message, 424-262-0904. Email us at fanmail@peptalkspodcast.com. Donate, peptalkspodcast.com. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.